5-hour game.
Round one of the Patrick Mahomes-Caleb Williams rivalry sadly goes to the Bears as they beat the Kansas City Chiefs in week 3 of the preseason game. What's up, everybody? Ken Swanson here with Matthew Lane. The preseason is over. The Kansas City Chiefs finish winless in said preseason as they fall to the Chicago Bears on Thursday evening. I'm here with Matthew Lane. Matthew, how are we doing this Thursday evening?
We're not doing great. The Chiefs didn't put out a good effort. I don't think it was a good performance. They didn't seem very prepared. I don't think that everybody was giving it their all. They could not recognize play action. Their rush gap integrity was terrible. So it really was just not the Chiefs' day, Kent.
Oh, thank you for all the hard-hitting analysis and play-by-play performance analysis there. I really appreciate it that we can get it out of the way. We want to start this show off with something that happened right before the Kansas City Chiefs kicked off against the Chicago Bears. It is reported that, and confirmed by Brett Veach, by the way, that Creed Humphrey has signed a significant extension, 4-year, $72 million, $50 million guaranteed, to remain the center for Patrick LaVon Mahomes. I think we all kind of expected that this deal was going to get done, Matthew, and they announced it just before the team kicks off against the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, this deal, I think, was, it was coming down the pipeline. I think most people suspected it, thought it would happen at some point in time this offseason before the season started, and it seemed like Creed Humphrey was the guy of all of the potential Chiefs extensions to be announced, was the one that was the most likely to happen. And so here's where it comes in. It's a no-brainer to go ahead and get it done. Like, you want Creed Humphrey to be around. He's been one of, if not the best center in the NFL the past couple seasons. He's clearly still young. He's a centerpiece to this offensive line and the whole team as a whole. Like, it's very clearly a no-brainer, but man, Creed got paid.
He got
paid.
I think it's, when we were talking about the idea of Creed Humphrey getting paid, I think we were thinking more in a range $15-16 million as opposed to what ultimately comes down as an $18 million APY contract. It's, I think you made a good point. Like, I think he was the most logical one to get done sooner rather than later, right? Like, I think he was the one that made the most sense to get done of the three. Bolton seems like he might be trying to kind of play the season out and then secure a bag next year, kind of the vibe I'm getting. Trey Smith, when you see the inflation of the guard market, felt like he was going to be a little bit more difficult to secure. Creed gets done. Still, like, it's a heavy pay. I mean, it's a heavy pay. Like, the deal, the highest APY on a center contract before tonight was $13.5 million. Creed definitely exceeds that, gets $18 million, which is creeping up closer to what the guard market started doing here this last offseason. So it's a big spike. The difference between the first and the fifth center is the difference between the first and the fourth center is significantly smaller than the difference between the new first center now. So it's a big jump.
Yeah, and like the cap's going up, so the percent jump of like the overall cap might not be that bad, but I guess it's also kind of hard to tell because the second highest center contract right now, I believe, is Frank Ragnow, and that was signed right around the COVID cap overall is down extra Like there was the reduction off the top. So I don't even know how you go about calculating the percent of the cap for centers right now. It's like both Creed Humphrey's getting his contract when it's going the highest. Frank Ragnow probably had his when it was the lowest, but when was that deal agreed to? It's like you don't have a great comparison point. The only thing you can go off of is Lloyd Cushenberry signed a center deal earlier this year. He became the second highest paid center, and his APY is $12.5 million. Creed comes in at 18. It's a significant jump. Like, it's a big jump for the center market. The Chiefs reset the center market. And yeah, I no qualms with making Creed Humphrey the highest paid center in the NFL. If you had to go that high, you had to go that high. It is what it is, but that is definitely a substantial chunk of money going to an interior offensive lineman at a position that where most teams, they build out their offensive line, that's where they're looking to save the money. Like, you can no longer get good, cheap guard play or like good guard play for cheap unless it comes from the draft. So you kind of rely on getting that from the center. You're now not getting any kind of discount for the good center. So
Jared Kelly saying Sunday ticket is like $900. The cap will jump again, especially if the teams avoid that lawsuit too. Am I right? But yeah, no, I don't know what other center is going to be coming down the pike here from a contract perspective, but it really doesn't seem to be a lot of movement in the center market recently. So the next one, is probably going to want in a similar range as Creed Humphrey. And look, Creed Humphrey is arguably the best center in all of football. So he deserves to be paid as a blue chip player. That's what he is. I would imagine this makes, this will be fascinating what happens with Trey Smith at this point. Nate Taylor says that Trey Smith is the next player that the Chiefs are going to attempt to extend now that they have taken care of Creed Humphrey. By the way, shout out Pretty Ricky for having Harrison Butker and Creed Humphrey quite early here. He announced that both of those guys would be getting top of market deals here like a month ago, and he nailed both of them. So shout out to him. So yeah, good on Creed Humphrey for getting the bag. I'm fascinated to see what this means for the rest of the group. What happens with a Nick Bolton? What happens with a Trey Smith now that the Chiefs have given $18 million APY to Creed Humphrey to be the new center for the center for the next 5 years for the Kansas City Chiefs. I saw someone asking if it lines up with Kingsley Suamata'ia's contract. So it's an extension on top of the last remaining year of his deal. So Kingsley will actually be up a year before Creed's contract expires. So they will have Kingsley and Creed locked up for the duration of Kingsley's contract, and then Creed for an extra year beyond that if they are to have some kind of transition year. Like, I think the timeline on the offensive line, when you're looking at how these guys are getting paid, kind of makes some sense. Like, I think it is pretty logical to see them do that. I'll be fascinated to see if they do get something done with Trey Smith, and if they do get something done with Trey Smith. I'd imagine this is Joe Thuney's last year in Kansas City. If they are to get something done with Creed Humphrey, wouldn't you think, Matthew?
Probably. I mean, it's going to be real hard to. Actually, I'm going to walk that back. I think if they get something done with Trey Smith, then it's Joe Thuney's last year in Kansas City. But if not, no, I don't think they go into next year trying to replace both guard spots. Because like I said, you can't go pay for quality guard play and get a discount. You can't go sign a quality starting guard in free agency and get them on for a good amount of money. You're going to have to be relying on drafting and plugging in two rookie offensive guards kind of at the same time. So no, I don't think that it's for sure that Joe Thuney is done after this year. I think it's more of if Trey Smith is signed along with Creed Humphrey, then you work to move on from Thuney. If not, you probably aim to just replace one of your guard spots at a time.
Yeah, I think that's about right. Any other thoughts on Creed Humphrey? Just your quick reactions. Anything else?
My thing is the Chiefs and their battle with positional value just continues. There's a team that just continues to ignore positional value and keeps churning out wins and Super Bowl wins. And so it's either something where analytics and, the nerds are way behind what's winning in football right now, or the Chiefs just have the ultimate outlier known as Patrick Mahomes, and it means that you don't have to care about positional value to win. And I'm going to lean towards the latter because we have a lot of years of data that suggest there are positions that are more valuable, and the Chiefs just continuously seem to reset the market for the ones that have the lesser value.
I think it's just very difficult to get good players at those positions of value, and that's probably part of why, it's tough to be in position to take an elite tackle and elite edge rusher, right? And so this team has, the option to just extend their blue chip players and then try to figure things out at, maybe some of the more marquee positions, like, starting a left tackle at a second round pick at left tackle. And so, if they can make those kind of moves and get away with those kind of moves, then yeah, maybe just firm up the interior the way that they have, and they've had an excellent interior, the best interior in the National Football League for the last few years, which has been great. And now at least one piece of that is under contract for 2025 and beyond. Excited for Creed Humphrey. Excited to have him in Kansas City for an extended period of time. All right, let's get into this game a little bit. The Chiefs fall to the Chicago Bears. It's 34-21. An absolute just barn burner. 65 points in a preseason game. That might be more than the rest of the preseason week combined. Some are saying, but I think we can start with Carson Steel. Congratulations to Carson Steel. You're going to have to figure out how to register your alligator in the state of Missouri, because I think you're going to be here for the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, Carson Steel continues to impress. And I think the big thing with him, it's what we kind of talk about with all these games, is you want somebody to go out there and look like they are not just a better player, but a better athlete. They're bigger, stronger, faster than the other guys that are out here in this game, because a lot of guys playing in this preseason game are fighting to make practice squads, not just 53-man rosters, but practice squads. So you want to find the guys that stand out above the rest, that just kind of look different. And I think Carson Steel kind of made that evident on the very first play of the game. The first kickoff, he flies down the field and he kind of rips through rips through a block and is the one to make a tackle. Then he follows that up with a good return when he's given the opportunity to get a kick return. Then we know there was the Carson Steel drive after the interception, then punt, where he has the big long run that he rips off. Then he gets the punch in from the one. Just he continues to impress, week after week. We saw the highlights the first week. The second preseason game, we saw the versatility. We saw him get used in all these different ways. And now you cap it off by just saying, here's another complete game for a guy that looks better than other people on the field. It's exactly what you want to see from him.
Yeah, I think Deneric Prince got the first run in the game, but then you saw a little bit of Carson Steel getting fed a little bit after that. I like what I've seen out of Carson Steel more than I like what I've seen out of Deneric Prince to this point. So I think if you're asking me, depending on the Clyde Edwards-Helaire situation and how comfortable they feel with him, Carson Steel looks like a guy that not only makes this roster, but I think I'd be very fascinated to see him get the football a little bit, just kind of see what happens with him. That last run was quite impressive, and I know it is against a lot of players that probably aren't going to make the 53-man roster for the Bears, but man, that was the kind of run that you want to see, where he's making people miss. He's physical. He's downhill. He's got enough juice to get to the end zone. He had enough there to get it all the way and close the play, or right at the goal line, what have you. But what a fantastic run, to kind of close out, his preseason case. So that's it, man. He locked it. Sharpie, Carson Steel. I think he was already Sharpie personally. Like, I think this was a lock. A lot earlier, but just continuing to add the value and showing why he should be sticking around. Brett Veach made a comment on the radio show, that he likes when players make the decision for him, and he was speaking about Carson Steel when he said it. So he's like, we like when players make the decision for us, and it seems like Carson Steele's done that. So that's so great to see. And this is a guy that fits a role for this team that they need, and that's what I'm kind of curious about now. It's not just if he's making the 53 main roster; it's what does the role he fill on game day? Because I think there's a legitimate opportunity for him to see significant playing time.
I mean, I think we might be getting beyond a role. Like, he might just straight up be your running back too when everyone's healthy. And that's no longer like a role. You are now a rotational player. That's even a step up from being a fullback that's also a short yardage back or something. Like, that's where that was kind of going into the preseason. And even after the first game, or maybe even the second game, that's what you're kind of thinking about for what the season outlook is. There's a role for him. Like you're saying, he's a fullback. He's maybe a third down back because of the blocking, a short yardage back. But now, I'm just not certain they're not just going to run him out there as their running back too. And that's beyond a specific role. That's like, hey, we're going to use you whenever, however we need to, because you're the guy that's up. When Isaiah Pacheco needs a rest, when we want to take some of the brunt of carrying the rock every single time off of him, he might be the very next guy up. And like, that's exciting. That's a lot more exciting to have him. And this is no offense, than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who we have seen for years. Like, I think he's a solid, steady player. I think as Andy Reid said it, we know what he is. We know what he gives us. We don't know how available he is right now, but we know what he is as a football player. Carson Steel might be better than that. And maybe he's not. And when the opportunities come and it doesn't work out, you have to fall back and go back to CEH. But until then, like, I just think that he might get that opportunity first. And that's very exciting to watch from the outside because he does bring stuff that other guys don't that are on this roster.
All right. So we're going to take a break. We'll be back with more right after this.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Listen, I love golf. I love holiday, bourbon. I love Mission Taco. I love brisket. I love all kinds of fun and games. And I am excited for the KCSN golf tournament that's happening in a little over 2 weeks at Sunflower Hills Golf Course, September 7th. It's the Saturday after the Chiefs beat the Ravens on Thursday Night Football to open the season. It's going to be so much fun. We are going to have all kinds of delicious meals. Mission Taco's making one. We're going to have some briskets being cooked up and smoked by our friend Chief Bearcat, and they are ridiculous. There's going to be all kinds of tents with your favorite beverages out there, and everyone that signs up for this tournament is also getting a bottle of KCSN's Barrel Pick at Holiday Distillery. We picked a great one, a 7-year. We did a good job. Really proud of ourselves. Tucker knew at first chug that it was going to be the one. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind, we still got some spots available, and all the proceeds go to the KCSN Foundation. And we run a remarkably efficient foundation. By we, I mean BJ, Christian Gumminger. They're doing a tremendous job over there managing and making sure that as much of that money possible winds up going to the charities that we support, like Operation Breakthrough. We're helping kids with children's literacy. We're helping homeless people throughout the city. So please consider golfing for a great cause and having a great time and getting some great stuff. So we'd love to see you out there in a couple weeks at Sunflower Hills. Link should be in the description of this show. You can also reach out to us personally if you want to try to get signed up too. We'd love to, help you get taken care of there. So this is from Lewis Riddick a little bit ago. Jaden Hicks is an effing star in the making. That was the take from Lewis Riddick. I understand the plays that got him excited. I would say there's probably a few drawbacks from that game as well, but I still continue to be excited about the outlook of Jaden Hicks. It does feel like we're talking about the same guys over and over again. The same guys over and over again continue to shine, and that's a positive sign for those particular guys when you're looking at the totality of the 53-man roster.
Yeah, I was hoping that we'd get to see a little bit more Jaden Hicks and like some man coverage, utilize him in some ways that he hadn't been the previous 2 weeks. And we didn't get as much of that. Like, it was still sprinkled in, but for the most part, he played the same role he had been, and he yet again looked good. He comes up and makes a nice tackle near the line of scrimmage. He has a good pass breakup on something coming down the seams while he's playing deep. Like, I think Jaden Hicks has shown you that he is going to be a quality contributor this year. And he might play more of as a role because other safeties ahead of him might not be injured, but he is going to contribute at some level this season. And going forward, you might have yourself a guy that's really ready to compete to get into the rotation or become like an actual starter at safety. Like, it's been all good stuff from Jaden Hicks. You have seen some struggles in man coverage, some struggles with him trying to, he's a bigger guy. He's not the most laterally agile or flexible safety, right? So like man coverage hasn't been a strong suit, but I would like to see him get some matchups with tight ends there. But he's been good. He's physical. He brings like the same demeanor that a Justin Reed does. So having somebody that can back up Justin Reed and bring that same level of physicality and just kind of like grit to the middle of the field is always going to be a good thing.
I think, there were concerns about coverage ability coming into college, and I think into the NFL, and that's probably why we wound up seeing him available so late in the 4th round. But ultimately, the things that he is able to do are hard to overlook. And the thing that's been positive about the outlook for him is, I think some of the things that got you excited about his tape at Washington State are continuing to show up and continuing to show up in a big way, in an impactful way. He is a missile into the flat, and he can kind of reduce plays to 0-1 yard gains, sometimes some negative plays out there. So like he's got great downhill instincts, and yeah, he's a little bit tight hipped. I know, like even that pass breakup when they're playing cover 2 and the ball, he makes a play on the ball a little bit and dislodges it, but he wasn't in phenomenal position necessarily on that play either. It was a little rigid trying to make that break on the ball, but still made a play on the ball nonetheless. But again, it's about the things that he can do, and those continue to stack every single time you see him on the field. So that's what's so encouraging about the outlook of Jaden Hicks. And yeah, there's still some concerns about coverage for sure, but I mean, this guy has done everything you can ask as a 4th-round player. I hope Louis Riddick is right. He turns into a star. I think he's a very good football player. And I think he does have a bright future here in Kansas City. And I think it's going to look ridiculous that the Chiefs were able to get him in the 4th round when it's all said and done. So I am very excited about that. Some disappointing news, and I think probably something that once we kind of shake off this game and think about it a little bit harder, some concerns are existing on the offensive line as Wanya Morris exits the game with a knee injury. That was probably one of the bigger storylines, I think, in this game, honestly, when you're looking at, they didn't get out of it healthy. Wanya Morris misses the entirety of, the second half and basically, actually about 3/4 of the game. I think he exited early in the first quarter. So don't know if that's precautionary. I think we'll wait to hear what Andy Reid says. But, I think there is, it's not great to hear that your swing tackle is, exiting the game early with a knee injury, hopefully just precautionary.
And it was his first preseason action of the year. So like, he had been battling a little bit of an injury leading up to this. So you hope they're not related. You hope that this is something that, isn't serious and he can get back from. But it's also not as if Wanya Morris looked great before leaving with the injury either. He got torched on an inside move when he was kind of left one-on-one in space right before the 4th down play that he eventually got hurt on. So it's not like he was off to a strong showing before he gets injured. And then he gets injured there with, I believe it was the first drive, if not the second drive of the game for the Chiefs. He comes out of the game. He is replaced by Chu Godric. And then that led down to the same issue the Chiefs have kind of shown all preseason. The backup offensive line for this team is not good. And like, I don't even know if Wanya Morris changes that a ton. I don't know if we've seen enough to say that he definitely changes if the backup offensive line is good or not, but Lucas Niang struggled again. Chu Godric, I think, had his hands full playing left tackle. So the Chiefs are kind of relying very heavily on their starters. I think Mike Caliendo continues to look fine and functional. And with time, if Hunter Norzad has to step in and play on the interior, I think you'll get okay with that. But outside those two guys, I really think this backup offensive lines, it's a little scary. And so you need to keep those starters healthy all the way across the board, because you don't feel great about the backups coming into it this season.
What do you think about Ethan Driscoll today? Like, I thought it was kind of up and down a little bit today. He was playing on the right side now, which I think is a little bit fascinating, because now we've seen a lot of reps on the left and right side for him.
Yeah, I don't think this was as strong as the second preseason game for him. I thought there was a little bit, it was a little bit up and down. This game, like you said, there was some good, there was some bad. He had a good run block. He had a good block peeling off of the down block to catch the linebacker at Carson Steele's big run. There's some other plays where he just uses his size to really create movement in the run game. And you can see the length and the general good movement skills and pass protection, but sometimes when he has to redirect, he has to mirror, he has to change directions, it gets a little clunky. So I kind of maintain with Ethan Driscoll. I really like him. I hope the Chiefs can keep him around and develop him. I don't know if he's ready to give them snaps this year, even if somebody does get hurt. I don't think I still feel very good about Driscoll stepping in at right tackle or left tackle in case of an injury. The problem is he might already be better than Lucas Niang from what we've seen. If Wanya Morris is unable to go, you can't count on him. And I don't think Chu Godric has necessarily done anything to be better than Driscoll either. So he might by default just have to make this roster just to give you a safety, and not even a safety net, but give you your best option as a backup.
Yeah. And I mean, the hope is Ethan Driscoll gets a chance to develop. You're not hoping that he has to play in year one, but it's just like a chance to develop if he makes the 53-man roster. And yeah, he's a little bit farther down the list of guys you're wanting to see. So like that's That's a position to pay attention to if Wanya Morris is going to be missing extended time. So it's something worth paying attention to. Anybody else that stood out for you positively in this game?
No. And I don't mean to say that like in a bad way, but like, no, I don't think the Chiefs, this preseason game as a whole kind of reminded me of the mid 2000s, late 2000s Chiefs preseason games where the starters were fine, but the depth of the team wasn't great. And like the depth of this team did not look great this preseason. The depth of this Chiefs team, and that's been a strength in these past couple of years, I feel like just didn't look great. Now, Andy Reid and the Chiefs don't ever show you a whole lot in the preseason. I think you could see the Bears every other drive. They were getting some hard play action boots and trying to get some wide open stuff. The Chiefs never really did that. So like teams are trying a little bit harder, I think, than the Chiefs do, but the depth did not look strong this game. So no, I don't really think a whole lot of guys stood out a ton for me coming out of this one. I think you did have a handful of guys show off good return skills. Sky Moore, good return. Carson Steel, good return. Montreal Washington also had a good return in there. Like McCole Hardman, good return. So like there's a lot of options for kick returners now, but like I don't think anybody else really popped out in a super positive way more than we already shown.
I thought Sky Moore did good in return game. Like I thought that was like paying attention. I was like, all right, okay, Sky, I see you doing your work. I think he's done a pretty good job in the return game this entire preseason. So good on him for taking on that and then doing a good job and getting better in that regard. It's kind of interesting to get a look at a couple of players that really hadn't got a lot of reps to this point live. Jaylen Watson and Derek Nottie both getting some run today in those games. I thought Derek Nottie looked all right. Jaylen Watson definitely looked like a guy that hasn't had a lot of reps in training camp, had a lot of reps in the preseason, and is definitely still knocking some rust off, and to the point where he cramped up late in that game as well.
Yeah, and it's hard. We talked all off season or like this entire preseason practice training camp about how nobody's taking this cornerback 2 job and it's going to go to Watson by default. And it felt like the Chiefs, one, because of other injuries, they needed Watson to play. He needed to go eat some snaps because guys needed rest. But then he clearly was, I don't want to say he wasn't 100%, but he was not playing his best football in this preseason game. And then that leads into him suffering what looked like just a cramp late in the game. But like that wasn't the best showing you wanted to see from Watson, who we're trying to say is your cornerback 2 by default because nobody else earned it. Well, he didn't really earn it in the limited snaps he got either. So like once again, we're in the same spot with this entire corner room where nobody has really jumped out and looked overly promising. And I think you can, I'm making some dot connections here, but you can go through practice and these preseason games and say that nobody has been overly impressive at the cornerback spot. Watson was kind of your last hope, and this just wasn't a super strong game for him. So that was a little disappointing to see.
Yeah, I go back to moments when we saw Trent McDuffie struggling to play the ball against the New Orleans Saints in preseason, and yeah, obviously that wasn't great, but it didn't matter once the regular season hit, and so like it could just be a little bit of knocking off the rust and getting some real life game reps. And I mean, Matt, you remember there's a different level of energy that you have, and when you finally get to play a real game, even though practices are quote unquote harder in a lot of ways, those first live reps still they'll take a toll on you differently than what you experience in like your practices. Even though your practices and the 2-a-days and all that stuff can be a lot more challenging, there's just still something about once the adrenaline hits and once that energy kind of starts coming in, like it's just. It's tough to play. So, like, I asked the question, why is Jaylen Watson playing so many reps this game? And I kind of had the question answered for me as the game went on because, he needed to probably run around and chase, Scott, what's his first name? Not Travis.
What?
Scott, the receiver for the Bears.
Tyler Scott.
I knew it wasn't Travis because that's like a rapper or something. But like he was chasing Tyler Scott all over the field. Cincinnati's Tyler Scott played a great game, by the way. Shout out to him. Had a great performance, but I mean, Jaylen Watson was getting cooked by him the entire game, and it probably was good for him to be running around there chasing him down a little bit. And he cramps up and all that stuff. So hopefully that was just an opportunity for him to knock some rust off because you're right, it was a little bit of a rough performance.
Yeah, no, he absolutely needed to get the reps. I mean, he hadn't had any. Get the rust off, get your feet wet with live game action against opponents. Like, I think that's all fair and well. And they're going to go back and they're going to practice and they're going to determine, where they're at. It's just, you really would have liked to see one of these corners really competing for that CB2 or CB3 spot for the Chiefs stand out. And Watson was the last one that we hadn't seen yet. And then it didn't go so great for him. So yeah, that was not the greatest thing to see, but him and Derek Nottie did need those experience. It was not experience, but reps. It was good to see both were healthy enough to play deep into a game. I know Watson suffered the cramp and came out of the game, but that looked just like a cramp in the calf. Not worried about that. So him and Derek Nottie getting those reps, those are two guys that they are going to rely on a little bit for the season. I think that's pretty big.
Do we need to have another FAU conversation?
I mean, what's there to have? Like, right? Like, he just has not looked particularly good. He's not flashing. I don't think there's a whole lot that's changed from game 1 to game 2 to game 3. And I don't know if it's worth continuously piling on at this point, unless you have something new to say about it.
I think that's kind of where I am. It's like, he's done nothing to help, relieve the concerns that everyone has. Right. And I think there's a lot of people that kind of have that concern right now. Like, I know that they're like, it's kind of always like a little touchy, I think, at times with some of these players because there is loyalty to local schools, but like, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of that happening out there right now. There's just a lot of people down on Felix Anudike Uzomah. And it's reason to be concerned. I don't know what I was hoping for exactly. I think you just wanted to see maybe him take a step, but I actually thought I'll make a case. I'm not sure he doesn't look worse as the entire preseason has gone on, if I'm being honest. He was getting washed up the field by a backup tackle for the Chicago Bears.
Backup, buddy. Practice squad tackle.
Yeah, and it wasn't like he was getting shoved 12 yards deep into the pocket.
Here's my I'm gonna play a little defense here.
Please do. And I think it's fair.
So Nate Saylor said after game 2, at the end of the game, down the stretch of the second preseason game, he was exhausted. And he come out and like you look and he played a ton of snaps in the second preseason game. And he played a ton of snaps in this game. And they were probably condensed too. Like Felix, I believe, led all defensive ends in snaps in the second preseason game, but he didn't play the fourth quarter. So he did that through 3 quarters. This game, he was leading the team in snaps. Like not just the defense or defense ends, leading the team in snaps in the
31.
first half. So he's playing a lot. I'm sure he's getting tired. I'm sure practice is going the same because Chris Jones isn't taking full contact every play. You're not having Charles Omenihu there. Like guys are out, they're missing time. So I'm sure he's getting pushed hard in practice too. So he might be a little tired. He might be a little beat up. It might be getting to be a lot to that point to where you're just kind of the body blow theory of running the football. So that could be why he's getting pushed up the arc. That could be why as the preseason goes on, it's looking a little worse and worse. He's showing less and less flashes. The only problem with trying to play defense in this is the NFL season's long. You're not going to get a bigger break than this. If 3 preseason games were enough to kind of push you to your limits, what do you think week 10 is going to look like? Week 12. And like, we're not even getting the flashes leading up till then. So I don't know. It's hard to be overly excited right now, but I do want to offer up at least the theory that he's getting a ton of the workload right now. So he might be a little tired.
Tucker D. Franklin is with us, and the D stands for updates from Andy Reid's press conference. Tucker Franklin, what do you have?
This is per Jordan Foote on Twitter. Andy Reid said that offensive tackle Wanya Morris tweaked his knee, and he was already nursing on it. It's the same knee he was already nursing it on. He said he's going to be okay. Andy Reid also said, my hat goes off to Ian Book. He did a nice job when he had an opportunity to get in there.
No, we did not.
I think it's funny looking at the stat lines of Chris Oladokun and Ian Book and knowing I would 100% take Chris Oladokun over Ian Book.
Andy Reid was talking about him like you talk to a 2-year-old who like draws you a picture with scribbling with crayons. Like he sure did a good job.
Offensive leaders for tonight, by the way. Ian Book had 71 yards passing. Carson Steel, 50 yards rushing. Montrell Washington, 49 yards rushing. This tweet coming from Nate Taylor. He said, following tonight's game, Bears coach Matt Eberflus said Douglas Coleman is at a local hospital being further evaluated after his injury when he helped tackle Cornell Powell. Eberflus said Coleman gave the thumbs up before being carted off. Quote, I don't have anything more than that.
That's good. that that he's at least got some movement there. So yeah, that was kind of a scary moment there. We've also got some comments on Creed Humphrey, heck of a football player. Started off that way and he's kept going that way. We appreciate all he does and we appreciate having him. So sounds like, hey, look, Andy Reid's excited that, Creed Humphrey's getting that extension done as well. So credit there to Creed Humphrey getting that extension as well. You got anything else from the press conference there, Tucker D. Franklin?
I'm scanning the Twitter now. It does not look like there is much of anything, and I think those guys want to get out of there as much as you guys want to.
Yeah, I would say something about the game. We've ebbed and flowed a lot on the wide receiver room and what it's going to look like. And Dave Tobe's comments about Nico Remigio and being one of his guys and pounding the table for him. Well, Nico Remigio played really late in this game, and he didn't even get to be a returner until after McCole Hardman was the returner. I feel like we overreacted to Tobe's comments about Nico being a guy he's going to pound the table for. Not saying that Dave doesn't like him, not saying that Dave Tobe's not going to try to get him on there, but I don't know. The way we kind of took it was like if Dave Tobe had to get one guy or one returner, that's his pick. I don't know if that's his pick. I think Nico might be on his outside looking in again this season because it looks like McCole Hardman, I think, has a slight upper hand here.
I'll even go this far. I don't think Nico Remigio has done enough to have the Chiefs worried that he's not going to be making the 50 or I think he'll be able to make the practice squad. I think he'll be able to make the practice squad at this point. Yeah, Mizzou 19. Remember when Kent said yesterday that Nico was on the team? Yeah, I had him 60-40 on the team. I had him 60-40 him versus Justin Ross on the team. Just kind of, it was the special teams bump for Dave Tobe. That was the factor, right? That was the thing that was kind of keeping me there. And I don't know, man. I don't know if he did enough tonight, and I thought we might see him profile a little bit more tonight, but I don't know if he did enough to say, let's, someone's going to claim him. Someone's going to claim him on the waiver wire.
He and Deneric Prince fall into the same bucket for me as they keep having good camps. They get these opportunities in camp to work in it with the first team, and it even goes okay, but then the games start and they just never quite follow through with the hype that you think they are getting through camp or that we see in little spurts. And that maybe not fair to Remigio, because I do think he has had some moments, at least in the preseason, especially going back to last year, where there has been some actual good. And Deneric Prince, it seems like we're still waiting on it, but they're in the same spot to me. Like the idea of them is exciting for this team going forward. It just quite hasn't come to fruition yet when they're going up against another team. So I like both players to stick around if they can get them in their practice squad. I don't know how good you feel about either one of them necessarily making the 53-man roster because it's kind of hard to see where they're going to help you on Sundays.
Yeah, one other player kind of on the, I said 60-40 Ross versus Remigio. I think there's probably 7 who end up making this roster. I think there might be 7 making it.
Well, Justin Ross is a hard one too. He couldn't even line up still.
I know, but you also this is where I'm trying not to get too far ahead of myself, but trying to read between the lines. And we talked about, the production meetings and the way Trent Green talked about him, kind of talked to him like he was making the roster. And the funny thing that he did, Matthew, is he made the comment very similar to you about just kind of like body type and, roster composition. Like this is a guy that has a specific body type that this team doesn't have in the receiver room. So when he was speaking on him, I don't know, that at least piqued my interest a little bit, just because that's, it's a positive comment in his direction paired with the media concerns for Nico Remigio 2 games ago when they're kind of talking I don't know. We'll see. This is a tough room to make. I don't know. It gives me a little bit of, maybe Justin Ross is making this team.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. I think we feel pretty strongly about the 5 that are making it, and then it comes down to you're going to get a returner in there. I'm leaning McCole Hardman, and I don't know what the push is to make Ross to be the 7th over another running back, another offensive lineman based on what we've seen with these injuries, another tight end. It's just we'll see. This isn't the podcast to break it down, but like once again, Justin Ross didn't necessarily come out of this game looking like gangbusters and just like dominate a bunch of poor competition, right? Like he looked like he belonged on the field with the other guys on the field for this game. So like that's kind of just it's a hard pill to swallow. I think if you're going to come out of this game and like trying to make a case for any of these wide receivers to really make it, nobody really stood out for the Chiefs. I don't think necessarily from this game, from the receiver standpoint. And part of that goes back to the backup offensive line not having a chance, but it just seems like right now, McCole Hardman as a returner is going to make it. I think we all as fans want Justin Ross to make it because the story's good. The body type is different. There is a very clear path for him to have a role for the team. But when you have to get told from McCole Hardman where to line up, when your blocking effort really comes and goes, when you don't necessarily know all the play calls, that's a hard thing to use a roster spot on, I think, for this team.
Over under free agents, veterans, outside of the current Chiefs 90-man on the Chiefs 53-man roster here in a couple of years. What's the over or in a couple of weeks? Over under for week 1 is set at 1.5. How many waiver wires, trades, free agents? Over under 1.5.
To be on the 53-man roster?
Yes.
1.5? Under.
Okay.
I think it's at most 1.
Okay.
I think it will be a veteran cornerback that they signed to just be in the building, to be around, to start learning the system. As much as I really want it to be a defensive end, I don't know what's going to be available as an edge rusher. And it feels like they kind of made their bed with just waiting until Charles Omenihu comes back to see if that's enough of a boost to the room.
Okay. I think I'd try to get immediate help for the defensive end position too. Like that.
Would love to. But
it's tough to find. That's the whole point. They kind of put themselves in the corner there. That is going to do it for the KCSN post-game show. Only Weird Games normally goes on Thursdays. We will be they'll be live 4:30-ish. We add ish there to all the times for Only Weird Games, but they will be on Friday live at 4:30-ish. So you can hear more from them as well. That is going to do it for the post-game show, though. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll catch you later.